There are moments in life when heaven leans close and speaks with urgency, and this is one of those moments. God is saying, your blessing has been approved in heaven. Not pending, not delayed, not under review. Approved. Your name has already been spoken in the courts of eternity. Your situation has already been discussed in realms you cannot see, and a decision has already been made in your favor. But there is something else you must understand. Approval in heaven does not automatically mean manifestation on earth. There is a response required, and the Spirit is whispering with intensity, but you must respond now. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. This is not about a clock on your wall. This is about divine timing. There are prophetic windows in life that do not remain open forever. There are moments when heaven aligns circumstances, softens hearts, moves pieces, and creates a narrow opening for breakthrough. And when that window appears, it demands attention. It demands movement. It demands faith in action. 11:59 p.m. represents the final minute before a shift, the last breath before transition, the edge between what was and what is about to be. And God is saying that you are standing at that edge right now. Some of you have been praying for months, some for years. You have cried in private. You have questioned in silence. You have wondered if heaven even heard you. But what you did not see was the approval taking place behind the scenes. While you were waiting, heaven was working. While you were doubting, angels were being assigned. While you were feeling forgotten, your file was being stamped with divine authorization. The blessing has been approved. The breakthrough has been cleared. The answer has been signed. But here is the tension. Approval requires participation. Heaven will not force what you refuse to open. There are doors that must be opened from your side. There are invitations that must be accepted. There are steps that must be taken. And the urgency in this message is not to frighten you, it is to awaken you. Because delay can be costly. Hesitation can shift timelines. Distraction can cause you to miss the very moment you prayed for. Why is this message so rare? Because not everyone is spiritually alert enough to recognize when heaven is speaking in real time. Many people wait for loud signs. Many expect dramatic displays. But often, the most powerful moves of God come as quiet instructions with a deadline attached. Open immediately. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now, before 11:59 p.m., before the season changes, before the opportunity moves on, before the alignment shifts, there is a divine sensitivity required in this hour, a willingness to respond without overanalyzing, a readiness to move without seeing every detail. Faith is not proven when everything is clear. Faith is proven when you act because God has spoken. And right now, there is a stirring in your spirit. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Something in you recognizes that this is not just another message. It feels personal. It feels direct. It feels urgent. What if tonight changes everything? What if this is the moment that separates delay from acceleration? What if the only thing standing between you and manifestation is your response? You must understand, heaven does not rush, but heaven does move in appointed times. There are set moments, divine appointments, sacred intersections where obedience unlocks what has already been prepared. The enemy of your destiny does not fear your prayers as much as he fears your obedience. Because prayers ask, but obedience activates. And the reason this message carries urgency is because the window is open right now. Not yesterday, not next month. Now, the approval has already happened. The blessing is not a question mark. It is a confirmed decision in your favor. Imagine a package marked with your name sitting at your door. It hath been delivered. It hath been authorized. It belongs to you. But it will not walk into your house by itself. You must open the door. You must receive it. You must respond. And the Spirit is saying that the clock is near 11:59 p.m. The final minute of hesitation. The last second before transition. There are some who will ignore this and continue as usual. There are some who will feel the stirring, but silence it with logic. But there are others, those who are chosen for this moment, who will sense the weight of what is being said. You are not listening by accident. You are not here randomly. You are here because heaven trusts you with urgency. God is saying, your blessing has been approved in heaven, and part is settled. But you must respond now. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. This is the edge of change. This is the brink of breakthrough. This is the sacred second before the shift. And how you respond in this moment will echo into the next season of your life. When God says, your blessing has been approved in heaven, this is not poetic language. This is legal language. In the spirit realm, approval is not emotion. It is authorization. It is a divine decree. It is a decision established in the courts of eternity that cannot be overturned by human opinion. Long before you see evidence in your physical world, heaven has already released a verdict over your life. And when that verdict says approve it, it means provision has been assigned, favor has been scheduled, and outcomes have been aligned. Many people misunderstand how blessings move from heaven to earth. They assume that once God decides, it simply appears. But Scripture shows a pattern. Heaven approves, and then heaven looks for agreement on earth. There is a partnership between the divine and the human. There is a sacred cooperation. Approval is the first step. Response is the second. Manifestation is the result. Right now, something has been stamped in your favor. A spiritual seal has been placed over your name. What was once delayed hath been cleared. What was once resisted has been pushed through. What was once contested hath been settled. The approval stamp means that opposition no longer has legal ground to block what God has declared. But you must understand this. Even after approval, there can be silence before manifestation. And in that silence, many people lose confidence. This is where faith becomes critical. Because when heaven approves a blessing, it often requires you to move before you see. It may require you to step out while circumstances still look unchanged. It may require you to prepare for something that has not yet appeared. Divine authorization does not eliminate the need for bold action. It invites it. Think about the times in your life when you felt something shift internally before anything changed externally. That inner peace, that sudden clarity, that unexplainable confidence. Those are often signs that approval has already happened in the unseen. And the message you are hearing right now is confirmation that what you have sensed is real. The stamp has been placed. The decision has been made. Heaven is not debating your future anymore. But why does God require a response? Because response proves readiness. Response demonstrates belief. Response shows that you trust the one who approved the blessing more than you trust the visible circumstances around you. Heaven does not release precious things into careless hands. When God calls you to respond now, it is because He knows the timing is precise. There are alignments you cannot see. There are conversations happening beyond your awareness. There are doors positioned at the exact angle for you to walk through. If you delay, you risk misalignment. Not because God withdraws His promise, but because timing matters. A key works only when the lock is aligned. A door opens fully only when put at the right moment. And this is why the Spirit is emphasizing urgency. Not panic, not fear, but immediacy. The blessing has been approved, and now heaven is watching for your agreement. Agreement is powerful. When you agree with what God has declared, you create harmony between heaven and earth. You become a living echo of the divine decision, and that echo carries authority. Some of you have been waiting for a sign, and this is it. Some of you have been asking for confirmation, and this is your confirmation. The approval stamp has already been pressed. If this message is speaking directly to your spirit, I want you to take a prophetic step right now. Like this video as a declaration that you receive what heaven has approved. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their blessing is not denied but authorized. Comment with a bold "I receive it" as an act of agreement. And if you have not yet subscribed, do it now as a sign that you are aligning yourself with messages that awaken your faith in critical moments like this. These actions are not small. They are signals. They are your way of saying, "I will not miss my moment." There is something powerful about public agreement. When you respond openly, you break hesitation. You silence doubt. You declare to yourself and to the unseen realm that you are ready. And readiness attracts acceleration. The approval stamp in the spirit realm is waiting for your earthly response to activate movement. You may not see immediate fireworks. You may not hear thunder. But do not mistake quiet beginnings for small outcomes. The most significant shifts often begin invisibly. Seeds break open underground before they ever push through the soil. Contracts are signed before announcements are made. Approval happens before celebration. Right now, heaven has already celebrated your breakthrough. The signature has dried. The decree has been spoken. The blessing is not on hold. It is authorized. But the question remains, will you respond? Will you step forward? Will you open immediately before 11:59 p.m. in your season? Because when heaven stamps approve it is not a suggestion. It is an invitation to move. And your movement is about to change everything. When God says your blessing has been approved in heaven, the next question is not whether it is real. The next question is whether you will respond. Because there is a response that heaven is waiting for. Not a casual acknowledgement. Not a delayed reaction. But a decisive, faith-filled movement that says, "I agree with what you have declared." Many people think blessings arrive automatically. But throughout spiritual history, we see a pattern. Divine approval is followed by human participation. The miracle required a step. The promise required agreement. The open door required someone to walk through it. And right now, you are standing in that exact moment. The approval has already been issued, but the release is connected to your response. What does that response look like? It begins internally. It begins with alignment in your heart. You must reject the voice of doubt that whispers, "It's too late." You must silence the fear that says, "What if it doesn't happen?" You must push past the hesitation that tries to keep you comfortable and delay. Heaven is not asking for perfection. Heaven is asking for agreement. Agreement is powerful. When you say yes to what God has already approved, something shifts in the unseen realm. Your yes becomes a key. Your obedience becomes access. Your movement becomes activation. The blessing is not waiting on more paperwork in heaven. It is waiting on your cooperation on earth. Some of you have sensed this stirring for days. A holy urgency. A gentle pressure in your spirit. You tried to ignore it. You tried to distract yourself. But it keeps coming back. That is not anxiety. That is invitation. That is the Spirit of God prompting you to respond before the window closes. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. is not about a literal clock ticking on your wall. It is about a divine threshold. It is about a sacred moment of transition. There is a difference between being interested and being committed. Interest listens. Commitment acts. Heaven is not moved by curiosity. Heaven is moved by faith. And faith without response remains incomplete. Your response may be a decision you have been postponing. It may be a step of forgiveness. It may be a bold application. It may be sowing when it feels risky. It may be walking away from something that no longer aligns. Whatever it is, you already know. Deep down, you know the door that needs to be opened. Delay often disguises itself as wisdom. You tell yourself you need more time, more clarity, more confirmation. But there are moments when clarity follows obedience, not the other way around. This is one of those moments. The blessing has been approved. The pavilion is positioned. The shift is prepared. But the final trigger is your yes. And let me say something clearly, hesitation can cost momentum. Not because God withdraws His goodness, but because seasons move. Opportunities shift. Alignments adjust. When heaven creates a moment, that moment carries grace for action. If you move within it, you experience acceleration. If you delay beyond it, you may still reach the promise, but through a longer path. Right now, this message is not reaching everyone. It is reaching those who are meant to hear it. There is a reason you are listening. There is a reason your spirit feels alert. There is a reason this does not feel random. Heaven trusts you with this instruction because heaven sees your capacity. You are not too weak. You are not too late. You are not too unprepared. If you were not ready, the approval would not have been issued. Here is the deeper truth. Your response is not only about receiving a blessing. It is about becoming who you are called to be. Obedience shapes identity. Action strengthens faith. Every time you respond to God quickly, you train your spirit to recognize His voice more clearly. You become sharper, stronger, more aligned. Now hear this carefully. What you do in this moment sets the tone for the next season. If you step forward now, you establish a rhythm of courage. If you act now, you break cycles of delay. If you open now, you step into alignment with what heaven has already signed. And what comes next carries greater weight than you realize. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed. Before we go further, I want to seal this moment with a prophetic act of agreement. Type "I respond now" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 462 is now activated. This is not superstition. It is declaration. It is your public yes. And as you declare it, you are aligning yourself with the approval that has already been released over your life. The same Spirit that approves blessings also moves through willing vessels to spread light to others who are still waiting in darkness. If this message is stirring your spirit, then you already understand that this is bigger than one video. It is about reaching souls at their critical 11:59 p.m. moment. Scripture declares, "Give, and it will be given unto you." And this is not just ink on a page. It is God speaking directly to you, promising that what you release becomes a river back into your own life. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not funding content. You are igniting hope in someone who feels seconds away from giving up. I believe some of you are hearing this as a personal invitation. This is your moment to act, not casually, but prophetically. Every seed becomes oil for the lamp that keeps this message burning across nations. As you give, may open heavens respond over your household, and may the blessing approved in heaven manifest swiftly in your life. Do not delay your obedience. Move as you are led and release your seed now. There is something deeply symbolic about 11:59 p.m. It is the final minute before a new day begins. It is the thin line between what was and what is about to be. It is the breath held between two chapters. And when God says, "Open immediately before 11:59 p.m., He is revealing more than urgency. He is revealing transition. This is not about a random deadline. This is about a divine threshold. Throughout spiritual history, midnight has represented turning points. It is the hour when chains break, when cries are heard, when sudden shifts occur. Midnight is not just darkness. It is the moment darkness begins to lose its hold. And 11:59 p.m. is even more intense. It is the final warning before movement. The last opportunity to respond before the page turns. Why would God attach urgency to something already approved? Because timing matters. Blessings are not just about content. They are about context. A blessing released too early can be mishandled. A blessing received too late can miss its fullest impact. Heaven operates with precision. When approval is granted, there is a coordinated alignment of events, people, and opportunities. And that alignment creates a window. Windows do not stay open forever. Imagine standing before a train that has already been cleared for departure. The destination is set. The seat has your name on it. The conductor has signaled approval. But the doors will not remain open indefinitely. There is a departure time. If you hesitate too long, the opportunity moves forward without you, not because you were rejected, but because you delayed. 11:59 p.m. represents that departure point in your season. It represents the final moment of grace before transition. It is not meant to create fear. It is meant to awaken awareness. There are moments in life when you can afford to wait. And then there are moments when waiting becomes resistance. This is not a season for passive faith. This is a season for decisive alignment. Some of you have been living in spiritual 11:59 p.m. for a while. You feel the pressure of change. You sense that things cannot remain as they are. You know that comfort has expired. That restlessness is not confusion. It is countdown. Heaven is preparing to shift you into a new day. But the shift requires your cooperation. There is also something powerful about the number sequence itself. 11 often symbolizes disorder or incompletion, while 12 represents divine government and authority. 11:59 p.m. is the final minute before 12. It is the closing of incompletion and the entrance into divine order. In other words, it is the last second before alignment is fully established. And God is saying, do not let hesitation keep you 1 minute away from breakthrough. Open immediately. The word open is intentional. Doors do not open themselves. Packages do not unwrap themselves. Opportunities do not activate themselves. There is a physical or spiritual action required. It may be a conversation you need to initiate. It may be an application you need to submit. It may be repentance you need to embrace. It may be forgiveness you need to extend. It may be a step of generosity, boldness, or surrender. Whatever it is, you know where the handle is. You have been looking at that door for some time. But here is what often happens at 11:59 p.m. Fear grows louder. Doubt intensifies. Distraction increases. The enemy understands timing. He cannot cancel what heaven has approved, but he can attempt to stall your response. He can whisper, "You still have time," He can suggest, tomorrow will be better. He can introduce small distractions that feel harmless but consume the final minute of grace. This is why urgency matters. There are spiritual thresholds that, once crossed, usher in a completely new dimension. When the clock strikes midnight, the date changes whether you are ready or not. The calendar does not ask for your permission. Transition happens. The question is whether you will enter it prepared or scrambling. God's instruction to open before 11:59 p.m. is an act of mercy. It is a warning wrapped in love. It is heaven saying, I have already prepared what is next. I have already approved your blessing. But I want you to step into it intentionally, not accidentally. You are not meant to stumble into your next season. You are meant to walk into it consciously, boldly, and in agreement. Think about how many times in the past you felt a prompting but delayed. Think about opportunities that slipped because you overanalyzed. Think about doors that slowly closed while you were still deciding. This moment is different. This moment is charged with divine timing. The approval is fresh. The alignment is precise. The door is positioned. But 11:59 p.m. does not wait for comfort. The beauty of this deadline is that it signals hope. It means something new is about to begin. It means the night you have endured has an expiration time. It means that the season of uncertainty is about to give way to clarity. But new beginnings require old hesitations to end. The final minute is where courage is tested. It is where faith must rise above logic. It is where you choose between staying where you are and stepping into what has already been approved for you. God is not trying to rush you into panic. He's calling you into precision. There is a difference. Panic is chaotic. Precision is focused. And heaven is focused on your transition. So hear the urgency again. Your blessing has been approved in heaven. But you must respond now. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. Because when the clock strikes midnight in your season, what you chose in the final minute will determine how you step into the new day. The moment your blessing was approved in heaven, something else was activated as well. Not just favor, not just alignment, not just preparation, but warfare. Because whenever heaven authorizes advancement, resistance often intensifies. And if you are not aware of this pattern, you may misinterpret opposition as a sign that something is wrong, when in reality, it is proof that something has been set in motion. You must understand this clearly. The enemy does not waste energy attacking what has no future. He does not mobilize distraction against something insignificant. Warfare increases around approved blessings because those blessings carry impact. They carry change. They carry momentum. And momentum threatens stagnation. Think about it. Have you noticed how, right when you feel closest to breakthrough, confusion tries to creep in? Doubt grows louder. Small conflicts arise. Unexpected delays appear. Fatigue increases. It feels almost strategic. That is because it is. The purpose is not necessarily to destroy the blessing, because what heaven has approved cannot be overturned, but to delay your response long enough for you to miss the timing. Remember, the message was clear. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. The enemy understands timing. If he can keep you distracted in the final minute, he can cause you to hesitate at the threshold. And hesitation at the threshold can prolong your journey unnecessarily. Warfare around approved blessings often comes in subtle forms. It may not look dramatic. It may look like overthinking. It may sound like your own voice saying, maybe this isn't the right time. It may feel like sudden insecurity about something you were confident about yesterday. It may show up as busyness that consumes your focus. The goal is simple: to shift your attention away from obedience. Another common tactic is isolation. When a blessing is near, the enemy tries to make you feel alone in your decision. He whispers that no one will understand, that you will look foolish, that you are taking too big a risk. Isolation amplifies fear. But what he hopes you do not realize is that approval from heaven outweighs agreement from people. There is also the tactic of discouragement through delay. You may have responded once before and not seen immediate results. That memory becomes a weapon. Last time you step out, nothing happened, the voice says. Why try again? But what you cannot see is that this time is different, because this time the blessing has already been stamped approved. This is not an experiment. This is execution. The enemy cannot revoke divine approval, but he can attempt to exhaust your faith. He can try to wear you down emotionally so that when the moment comes to act, you feel too drained to move. That is why guarding your peace is crucial in this hour. Do not entertain every negative thought. Do not internalize every external opinion. Recognize the pattern. Resistance is often a signal that you are close. Consider how storms intensify before they pass. Winds grow stronger just before calm returns. Later pains increase right before birth. Escalation often precedes emergence. The warfare you feel is not random chaos. It is resistance to transition. It is the friction that occurs when old seasons collide with new beginnings. And here is something powerful. Warfare loses strength when exposed. When you recognize that doubt is not truth but interference, it weakens. When you identify distraction as a tactic, it loses authority. When you name fear as opposition rather than intuition, you regain clarity. This is why awareness matters. If you interpret resistance as a sign to retreat, you will pull back at the very moment you should step forward. But if you interpret resistance as confirmation that something significant is unfolding, you will stand firm. You will understand that opposition is not proof of denial, it is proof of value. You must also guard your words in this season. Warfare often tries to provoke negative declarations. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I heard wrong. Maybe I should just wait. Words shape direction. When you speak doubt, you reinforce delay. When you speak agreement, you reinforce alignment. Choose your declarations carefully. Speak in harmony with what heaven has approved. There may also be relational warfare. Sudden misunderstandings. Unexpected tangents. Moments designed to pull your focus away from obedience. Not every disagreement is spiritual warfare, but in critical seasons, you must be discerning. Ask yourself, is this pulling me away from responding? Is this draining the courage I need to act? If so, step back and regain focus. Above all, remember this: warfare is loud, but approval is final. The enemy can create noise, but he cannot change the verdict. Heaven has already signed your blessing. That signature is not fading. That decree is not expiring. What is being contested is not the approval, it is your response. You are not under attack because you are weak. You are under pressure because you are near transition. You are not facing resistance because you are rejected. You are encountering friction because you are moving. And here is the empowering truth: every time you choose obedience in the face of warfare, you grow stronger. Every time you act despite resistance, you build resilience. Every time you respond before 11:59 p.m. despite the noise, you prove that your faith is anchored in approval, not in comfort. The warfare around approved blessings is real, but it is temporary. The approval in heaven is permanent. So when doubt whispers, remember the stamp. When fear rises, remember the signature. When distraction knocks, remember the deadline. Because the blessing has been approved, and no amount of resistance can cancel what God has already authorized. There is a difference between a closed door and an ignored door. A closed door means it was never meant for you. An ignored door means it was opened, approved, and waiting, but you chose not to move. When God says, "Your blessing has been approved in heaven," but you must respond now. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. He is not threatening you. He is warning you about the cost of hesitation. Ignoring a divine prompt does not always bring instant consequences. That is what makes it dangerous. Life may appear to continue as normal. Days pass. Responsibilities continue. Nothing dramatic happens. But internally, something shifts. Momentum slows. Confidence weakens. The sharpness of spiritual hearing dulls. And what could have been acceleration becomes delay. Delay is not the same as denial. God's promises are not fragile, but timing is sacred. When you ignore a prompting in a moment of grace, you often have to circle back through lessons you could have completed earlier. You may still reach the destination, but the route becomes longer. The journey becomes heavier. The simplicity of immediate obedience is replaced with the complexity of recovery. Think about how many times you felt clearly led to take a step but postponed it. Maybe it was a conversation you needed to have. Maybe it was a decision you knew was right. Maybe it was an opportunity that felt risky but aligned. You told yourself you would do it later. But later came with complications. Later came with obstacles that were not there before. Later came with diminished clarity. When heaven creates a moment, it carries a specific grace. That grace makes obedience lighter than it would be at any other time. It is like a current in a river that helps carry you forward. If you move with it, progress feels natural. If you resist it, you find yourself swimming against the flow. Ignoring a divine prompt means missing the current that was designed to help you. There is also a deeper cost. Each time you silence a prompting, it becomes easier to silence the next one. Spiritual sensitivity is strengthened by obedience and weakened by neglect. When you respond quickly, you sharpen your discernment. When you delay repeatedly, you begin to question your ability to hear clearly. Confidence fades. Doubt increases. What was once a clear voice becomes distant. The tragedy is not that God withdraws his love. He does not. The tragedy is that you begin to live below what was available. You adjust to less. You settle for partial fulfillment. You convince yourself that small progress is enough when heaven had prepared something greater. Approved blessings are not casual gifts. They are strategic releases designed to move you into new dimensions. Ignoring the prompt also affects those connected to your destiny. Your obedience is rarely about you alone. When God approves a blessing over your life, it often carries impact for your family, your community, and people you have not even met yet. When you delay, their breakthrough may also be delayed. There are lives intertwined with your response. There are outcomes connected to your courage. And sometimes the cost shows up as regret. Quiet, persistent regret. The kind that surfaces when you see someone else step into what you once had the opportunity to embrace. Not because it was stolen from you, but because you hesitated. Regret does not shout. It lingers. It asks, what if you had moved? It replays the moment when the door was open. But hear this clearly. If you are hearing this message right now, the door is still open. The fact that you are being reminded means the window has not fully closed. This is mercy. This is grace. This is heaven saying, do not repeat the pattern. Respond this time. There is a powerful shift that happens when you break a cycle of delay. The first time you act immediately instead of postponing, you rewrite your spiritual rhythm. You declare that fear will no longer dictate your timing. You demonstrate that approval from heaven carries more weight than comfort in the present. Ignoring a divine prompt often feels safer in the short term. Action feels risky. Response feels vulnerable. But long-term safety is found in alignment, not avoidance. When you align with the timing of heaven, you step into protection you cannot manufacture on your own. You step into favor that compensates for your weaknesses. You step into opportunities that multiply beyond your effort. The cost of ignoring the prompt is not always visible immediately, but the reward of responding is undeniable over time. Doors open faster. Clarity increases. Confidence grows. You begin to trust your spiritual instincts because you see the fruit of obedience. Right now, you are standing at a decision point. You can treat this message as background noise, something inspirational but optional, where you can recognize it as a divine prompt wrapped in urgency. The blessing has been approved. That part is settled. What remains unsettled is your response. Do not let comfort convince you to wait. Do not let fear talk you into delay. Do not let logic override conviction. There are moments in life when the cost of inaction is greater than the risk of obedience. You are not being rushed into chaos. You are being invited into alignment, and alignment always carries reward. The door is open. Your approval is stamped. The final minute is approaching. The only question left is whether you will ignore the prompt or step through it. Not every message is meant for every person, but some messages find you at the exact moment you need them, and when they do, they feel different. They do not sound generic. They do not feel distant. They feel precise. They feel personal. And if you are listening right now with a sense of alertness in your spirit, there is a strong possibility that this message is not random. It is targeted. One of the first signs that this message is personally for you is timing. You did not stumble upon it casually. You found it in a moment of questioning, in a moment of tension, in a moment when you were silently asking for clarity. Maybe you were just thinking about a decision you have been postponing. Maybe you were wrestling with whether to move forward or stay where you are. And suddenly, you hear the words, "Your blessing has been approved in heaven." But you must respond now. Open immediately to 11:59 p.m. That alignment of thought and message is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Another sign is the internal stirring you feel. It is subtle but undeniable. A tightening in your chest. A heightened awareness. A sense that this is not just information but instruction. When a message carries divine weight, it does not merely inform your mind. It engages your spirit. You may not be able to explain it logically, but something inside you knows this is significant. You may also notice repetition in your life recently. The same theme appearing through different conversations. Similar words spoken by different people. Repeated reminders about action, timing, or obedience. When heaven is emphasizing a point, it often echoes it through multiple channels. Not to overwhelm you, but to make it clear that this is not a passing thought. It is a directive. Pay attention to the tension you have been feeling lately. Restlessness can be a signal of transition. Comfort no longer feels comfortable. Stability feels stagnant. What once satisfied you now feels incomplete. The discomfort is not always dissatisfaction. It is sometimes divine prompting. It is the internal alarm that says your season is shifting. And when seasons shift, instructions follow. Another sign this message is for you is the presence of opportunity combined with fear. You see a door. You recognize its potential. But fear magnifies the risk. You feel the pull forward and the resistance backward at the same time. That internal conflict is often evidence that something meaningful is at stake. Insignificant opportunities do not provoke deep hesitation. Significant ones do. You may also sense that you are on the edge of something. It is hard to define. You cannot fully describe it to others. But you feel as though you are standing at a threshold. Life cannot continue exactly as it has been. Something must change. Something must move. And the phrase before 11:59 p.m. resonates because it feels like you are in the final moments of an old chapter. Consider your recent prayers. Have you been asking for confirmation? Direction? A clear sign? Sometimes the answer does not come as a dramatic event. Sometimes it comes as a direct instruction wrapped in urgency. The approval you have been waiting for has already been given. The clarity you have been seeking is embedded in the command to respond. There is also a sense of accountability that accompanies personal messages. When this is for you, you feel responsible for what you have heard. You cannot easily dismiss it. It lingers. It returns to your thoughts. It interrupts distraction. That persistence is intentional. Heaven does not repeat itself without purpose. You might also notice increased opposition lately. Unusual distractions. Heightened doubt. Emotional turbulence. These can be indicators that you are near something valuable. Resistance often surrounds transition. The closer you get to stepping into an approved blessing, the more pressure you may feel to retreat. If that pattern has been present in your life recently, it may be confirmation that this message is directly aligned with your moment. And then there is the simplest sign of all, peace beneath the urgency. Even though the message carries intensity, there is a calm assurance underneath it. It does not feel manipulative. It feels purposeful. It feels like guidance rather than pressure. That peace is significant. Urgency without peace creates panic. Urgency with peace creates clarity. If multiple signs resonate with you, the timing, the stirring, the repetition, the restlessness, the opportunity mixed with fear, the sense of threshold, the recent opposition, then do not dismiss this as coincidence. Patterns are rarely accidental. Alignment is rarely random. This message is not about general inspiration. It is about personal activation. It is about recognizing that the blessing approved in heaven has your name attached. It is about acknowledging that the instruction to open immediately before 11:59 p.m. applies to your specific situation. The fact that you are still listening, still attentive, still considering your next move, that itself is a sign. You have not scrolled away. You have not disengaged. Something is holding your focus. That focus is intentional. The question now is not whether this message is for someone. The question is whether you will accept that it is for you. Because when you recognize a personal call and respond to it, everything begins to align. There are moments in life when everything aligns so precisely that it feels almost fragile. Not weak, but time-sensitive. Sacred. Charged. This is one of those moments. The door is open. Not forced open. Not cracked slightly. Fully open. The blessing has already been approved in heaven, and now the entrance stands before you. But hear this clearly, the door will not remain open forever. Opportunities connected to divine timing carry a window of grace. That window is powerful, but it is temporary. When God says, "Open immediately before 11:59 p.m., it is because there is a shift already scheduled. Heaven has arranged the alignment. Circumstances are positioned. Conversations are lining up. Provision is assigned. But alignment functions within timing. Imagine standing in front of a gate that leads into a new dimension of your life. You can see light on the other side. You can sense expansion. You can feel increase. But behind you is familiarity, comfort, predictability. The door being opened means access is granted. But access does not equal movement. Movement requires decision. Some people pray for open doors but freeze when they appear. They ask for change but hesitate when change demands action. They desire breakthrough but resist transition. And transition is what this moment represents. When the door opens, it signals the end of one season and the beginning of another. The reason this door is time-sensitive is not because God is unstable. It is because seasons shift. There is a rhythm to divine orchestration. Just as harvest follows planting and dawn follows night, breakthrough follows alignment. But if a farmer refuses to harvest when the crop is ready, the field does not wait indefinitely. Timing matters. The same is true for you. The blessing approved in heaven has reached its moment of availability. The door stands open in your direction. But hesitation can cause you to remain on the threshold while the season transitions without you stepping through. You may feel fear right now. That is natural. Every significant door carries unknown territory. But fear is not always a warning sign. It is often a signal that growth is near. Comfort rarely requires courage. New dimensions always do. There is also a difference between preparation and procrastination. Preparation strengthens you for the door. Procrastination keeps you staring at it. Be honest with yourself. Have you been preparing, or have you been postponing? Have you been equipping yourself to move or convincing yourself to wait? The door is open because heaven trusts you with what is on the other side. If you were not capable, the approval would not have been granted. If you were not ready, the timing would not have aligned. Sometimes readiness does not feel like confidence. Sometimes it feels like trembling obedience. But obedience, even when trembling, is enough. This moment is not just about receiving a blessing. It is about stepping into identity. On the other side of this door is a version of you that has responded without delay. A version of you that chose faith over fear. A version of you that trusted the approval of heaven more than the uncertainty of transition. But remember, doors are symbolic of movement. You cannot live in a doorway. You must either stay where you are or step forward. Remaining in between drains energy. Indecision exhausts clarity. The longer you stand at the threshold, the louder doubt becomes. What comes next changes the atmosphere around your life. You'll understand why the urgency mattered once you step through. Let this settle in your spirit. The open door is evidence of approval. It is confirmation that what you have prayed for has reached its moment. It is proof that your waiting was not wasted. But proof still requires participation. And here is the deeper truth. When you move through a door God has opened, you activate acceleration. Things that felt stuck begin to shift. Conversations that seemed impossible begin to soften. Resources that felt distant begin to approach. Not because you forced anything, but because you aligned with timing. However, if you hesitate too long, the open door becomes a memory rather than a milestone. Not because God withdrew it in anger, but because seasons continue moving. The clock reaches midnight whether you step forward or not. This is why the instruction remains urgent. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. Not out of panic, not out of pressure, but out of precision. You are not being rushed into chaos. You are being invited into transition. Now, before we continue, seal this moment with intention. Type "I walk through the door" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 893 is now activated. This is your declaration that you will not remain at the threshold. This is your statement that you recognize the open door and choose movement over hesitation. And as you stand at this doorway, understand that obedience here does not just impact today. It shapes the entire next chapter of your life. As this door stands open before you, understand that this channel exists to help souls recognize their 11:59 p.m. moments. When you sow into this mission through super thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are placing oil in the lamp so that others can see their open doors before they close. God declares that when you release your seed, He releases provision in return, pressed down and overflowing. I believe some of you feel the nudge even now. This is your moment to act in faith, not casually, but prophetically. Every gift becomes a key that unlocks clarity for someone standing at their threshold. As you give, may doors of favor open in your own life without resistance. Do not hesitate in obedience. Move now and sow into the harvest of souls. There is a powerful principle woven into this entire message. Approval establishes possibility, but response releases acceleration. When God says, "Your blessing has been approved in heaven," but you must respond now. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. He is revealing that your movement determines the speed of manifestation. The decision has already been made in your favor. What remains is your alignment with it. Acceleration is not about rushing ahead recklessly. It is about divine momentum. It is what happens when heaven and earth move in harmony. When you respond at the appointed time, you step into a current that carries you faster than effort alone ever could. What once felt delayed begins to align. What once seemed blocked begins to clear. What once moved slowly begins to shift with unexpected ease. Think about how long you may have been waiting, praying, preparing, enduring. There were seasons when progress felt minimal, seasons when answers seemed distant. But those seasons were not wasted. They were preparation, and preparation sets the stage for acceleration. Once approval is granted and response is activated, movement intensifies. Your response is the ignition point. Many people misunderstand acceleration because they assume it requires more striving, more pushing, more forcing. But true spiritual acceleration happens when obedience meets timing. It is less about pressure and more about precision. When you move at 11:59 p.m., at the exact moment of transition, you enter the new day with momentum already in motion. Imagine pushing a heavy object uphill for months. Every step feels exhausting. Every inch requires effort. But then you reach the peak. The moment you cross it, gravity changes direction. Suddenly, what required strain begins to move with ease. A shift is acceleration, and often, it is triggered by one decisive step at the summit. This is why the instruction to respond now matters so deeply. Delayed obedience postpones momentum. Immediate obedience activates it. You may not see dramatic changes instantly, but watch closely. Conversations begin to unfold more smoothly. Opportunities appear without excessive striving. Favor shows up in places that once resisted you. Doors that seemed sealed begin to respond to your knock. These are not coincidences. They are the signs of alignment. Acceleration also brings clarity. When you hesitate, your thoughts become clouded. Doubt multiplies possibilities until confusion feels normal. But when you act decisively, clarity sharpens. Your action becomes simpler. You know what to do next because you took the first step. Some of you have been stuck not because God withheld blessing, but because response was pending. Heaven had already stamped approval, but earth had not yet replied. Once you reply with obedience, the exchange completes. The circuit closes. Power flows. This is why your response carries such weight. It is not symbolic. It highlighted. And let me say this clearly, your acceleration will not look identical to someone else's. Do not compare timelines. Do not measure your progress against another person's journey. Acceleration is personal. It is designed around your calling, your capacity, and your readiness. When it begins, it will feel unmistakable, but it begins with agreement. Right now, you have the opportunity to publicly declare that agreement. Like this video as a sign that you are aligning with the approval heaven has already given you. Share it with someone who may be standing at their own 11:59 p.m. moment, unaware that their blessing is already authorized. Comment boldly, "I choose acceleration," as your declaration of response. And if you have not yet subscribed, do it now, not casually, but intentionally, as a commitment to remain aligned with messages that sharpen your discernment in critical seasons like this. These actions are more than engagement. They are agreement. They are participation. They are your way of stepping forward instead of standing still. Here is power in visible response. When you act, even in small ways, you reinforce your internal decision. You tell yourself that you are no longer waiting passively. You tell the unseen realm that you are in position. You shift from observer to participant. Acceleration does not mean absence of challenge. It means movement despite it. It means obstacles no longer define your pace. It means resistance cannot hold you in place because alignment is pulling you forward. And here is something crucial to understand. Acceleration feels unfamiliar at first. When things begin to move quickly, it can feel almost uncomfortable. You may question whether it is real. But remember, you prayed for this. You asked for movement. You desired breakthrough. When it begins, do not retreat into hesitation simply because it feels new. The moment you respond before 11:59 p.m. in your season, you cross into the next day carrying divine momentum. What took months may begin to unfold in weeks. What seemed complicated may resolve with surprising simplicity. What felt distant may suddenly draw near. Your response unlocks acceleration because it aligns you with timing. And timing, when aligned with approval, produces movement. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. The approval has already been issued. The path has already been prepared. The only missing element was your decisive yes. And when you say yes at the right moment, everything begins to move. There is a moment that follows obedience that cannot always be explained, but it can be felt. It is the shift, the internal crossing over, the quiet but undeniable realization that something has changed. When you say yes to what heaven has already approved, when you open immediately before 11:59 p.m. in your season, you step into a different atmosphere, and that atmosphere begins to shape everything around you. The first shift often happens within you. Before circumstances rearrange, your spirit settles. The anxiety that once surrounded the decision begins to loosen its grip. The restless questioning grows quiet. Even if the external evidence has not yet appeared, there is peace. That peace is confirmation. It is the witness that alignment has occurred. You are no longer standing at the threshold debating. You have crossed it. This internal shift is powerful because it redefines your posture. You move from waiting to wanting, from open to expectant, from questioning to trusting. and expectation carries energy. It changes the way you speak. It changes the way you prepare. It changes the way you see opportunities. You no longer approach life cautiously as someone unsure of approval. You move forward as someone authorized. Once the internal shift happens, external movement begins to follow. It may not be dramatic at first. Sometimes it appears subtle, an unexpected phone call, a new connection, a conversation that opens possibilities. But pay attention to the pattern. Doors that once required force now respond with less resistance. Situations that felt immovable begin to soften. What once seemed distant begins to move closer. You may also notice divine timing at work in ways you did not anticipate. Meetings occur at precise moments. Information arrives exactly when needed. Delays that once frustrated you suddenly reveal their purpose. You begin to see that the waiting season was preparation, not punishment. Everything that felt slow was positioning you for this accelerated chapter. Another shift that occurs after you say yes is clarity of direction. Before obedience, everything can feel foggy. Multiple paths compete for your attention. Doubt magnifies uncertainty. But once you act, the fog lifts incrementally. You may not see the entire road ahead, but you see the next step clearly. And clarity of the next step is enough. There's also a shift in identity. When you respond immediately instead of hesitating, you strengthen your confidence in hearing and following divine instruction. You begin to trust yourself more. You recognize that you are capable of courage. You realize that obedience did not break you, it built you. Each decisive step reinforces your awareness that you are not fragile. You are prepared. You may even sense a shift in how others respond to you. When you carry the energy of alignment, people notice. Authority is not always loud, but it is recognizable. When you walk in agreement with what heaven has approved, your presence communicates confidence, and confidence attracts opportunity. But let me be clear, shifts do not eliminate challenges. What changes is your posture toward them. Before, obstacles may have intimidated you. After your yes, obstacles become temporary hurdles rather than permanent barriers. You face them differently because you know approval is already established. You are not fighting for validation. You are walking in authorization. There will be moments when you look back and realize how close you were to delaying again. You will see how fear tried to pull you back at the last second. And gratitude will rise in you because you responded anyway. That gratitude becomes fuel. It reminds you that immediate obedience produces tangible results. Sometimes the most significant shifts are not visible to others. They are internal transformations. A stronger sense of identity, a deeper trust in divine timing, a greater willingness to move when prompted. These invisible shifts often precede visible breakthroughs. You may also begin to see restoration in areas that felt stagnant. Relationships may mend. Opportunities may resurface. Resources may align. When acceleration begins, it touches multiple areas at once because alignment is holistic. When one door opens, others often follow. And here is something profound. Once you experience the fruit of responding before 11:59 p.m. in one season, you will never approach timing the same way again. You will become more sensitive to urgency, more responsive to prompting, more decisive at thresholds, because you will remember what happened when you chose obedience over hesitation. The shift after you say yes is not just about this single blessing. It is about establishing a pattern of movement in your life. It is about building momentum that carries into future decisions. It is about proving to yourself that you are capable of stepping into new days with courage. Right now, if you have already responded internally, expect the shift. Expect peace. Expect clarity. Expect movement. Do not demand it instantly, but anticipate it confidently. Approval has already been stamped. Response hath been given. Alignment has occurred. And when alignment and approval meet, change is inevitable. You have crossed the threshold. You have stepped through the open door. You have responded before the clock struck midnight in your season. Now watch what begins to move. When a blessing hath been approved in heaven, and you have responded before 11:59 p.m. in your season, the story does not end there. In many ways, it begins there. Because once you step into what God has authorized, you must learn how to guard it. Not with fear, not with anxiety, but with awareness. What heaven approves must be stewarded with faith. One of the greatest mistakes people make after breakthrough is relaxing into carelessness. They assume that because the door opened once, it will remain open without attention. But every new season requires new discipline. Every new level requires new discernment. Approval may be divine, but stewardship is human. Guarding what heaven has approved begins with protecting your mindset. After you step into alignment, doubt may attempt a final return. It may whisper, "Was that really God?" Or "What if this does not last?" These thoughts are not uncommon. They often surface after transition because the enemy cannot stop your movement, so he attempts to disturb your confidence. This is where gratitude becomes your shield. Gratitude keeps your focus on what has already happened instead of what could go wrong. When you intentionally thank God for the approval, for the open door, for the shift that followed your yes, you strengthen your awareness of His faithfulness. Gratitude stabilizes faith. Another way to guard your blessing is through consistency. The same obedience that brought you into this new chapter must continue within it. If boldness carried you through the door, boldness must remain part of your walk. If discipline prepared you for this opportunity, discipline must sustain you in it. Many people want new outcomes without maintaining the behaviors that unlock them. You must also guard your environment. Pay attention to the voices you allow near your breakthrough. Not everyone will understand your transition. Some may question it. Others may project their own fears onto your progress. Guarding your blessing does not mean isolating yourself, but it does mean being selective about influence. Stay connected to voices that reinforce faith, not those that magnify doubt. There is also a spiritual dimension to guarding what heaven has approved. Prayer does not end at breakthrough, it deepens. When you enter a new season, you require fresh wisdom. New levels reveal new responsibilities. New opportunities introduce new dynamics. Continue seeking guidance. Continue asking for clarity. The same God who approved the blessing desires to guide you within it. One of the subtle threats to an approved blessing is complacency. When something becomes familiar, it can lose its sense of value. You prayed for this opportunity. You longed for this shift. Do not allow familiarity to dull your appreciation. What was once a prayer request is now a lived reality. Treat it with reverence. Guarding also involves resisting comparison. As you step into acceleration, you may notice others moving at different speeds. Some may appear ahead. Others may seem behind. Comparison can erode contentment and distort focus. Remember, your blessing was approved according to your path, not someone else's. Stay centered in your assignment. Another critical element is integrity. Approval opens doors, but integrity keeps them open. Remain honest. Remain humble. Remain teachable. Success without integrity creates instability. But when character supports opportunity, growth becomes sustainable. You must also prepare for growth pains. Every new level stretches capacity. What once felt manageable may now require expansion. Responsibilities may increase. Expectations may rise. Growth can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is not danger. It is development. Guard your blessing by embracing growth instead of resisting it. There may be moments when challenges arise even after alignment. Do not interpret these as signs that approval was revoked. Challenges in a new season are not evidence of rejection. They are opportunities for strengthening. Continue responding with the same decisiveness that brought you here. Another key to guarding your blessing is remembering the urgency that activated it. Remember the weight of that 11:59 p.m. moment. Remember the tension of decision. Remember the courage it took to step forward. Let that memory remind you of who you are becoming, someone who responds promptly to divine timing. You also guard what heaven has approved by sharing testimony wisely. When appropriate, speak about what God has done. Testimony reinforces gratitude. It strengthens others. It solidifies your awareness that this was not accidental, it was authorized. But share with discernment. Not every detail requires public exposure. Finally, guard your blessing by remaining dependent on the one who approved it. Success can tempt you to rely on your own strength, but the same grace that opened the door must sustain you within it. Stay connected. Stay prayerful. Stay humble. The blessing has been approved. You responded before 11:59 p.m. The shift has begun. Acceleration has followed. Now comes stewardship. Guard it with gratitude. Protect it with integrity. Sustain it with obedience. Because what heaven approves is meant not only to be received, but to be preserved and multiplied. We have walked through the urgency. We have felt the weight of approval. We have stood at the threshold. And now we arrive at the final call before midnight. The message has been clear from the beginning. God is saying, your blessing has been approved in heaven. A decision is settled. It is not fragile. It is not uncertain. It is signed. But the instruction remains just as clear. You must respond now. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. This final moment is not about pressure. It is about completion. It is about sealing what has already begun in your spirit. You were not brought this far in this message by accident. Each part has been building toward this point, the point of conscious, confident agreement. Midnight represents transition. It is the dividing line between what was and what will be. And the beauty of this moment is that you are not stepping into the new day unprepared. You are stepping into it authorized. The approval has already gone ahead of you. Favor has already been assigned. Provision has already been arranged. What you are doing now is aligning your earthly response with a heavenly decision. Think about how different you feel compared to when this message began. At first, there may have been uncertainty, questions, hesitation, but now there is clarity, and now there is awareness. Now there is a deeper understanding that timing matters and that your response carries power. This is the final call before midnight in your season. Not a dramatic countdown, but a sacred invitation. You are not being asked to strive. You are not being asked to prove yourself. You are being asked to agree, to step forward, to open what has been placed before you. The next chapter of your life is not waiting on more approval. It is waiting on your continued alignment. And here is the reassurance you need to hear. You are capable of this. You are not too weak to carry the blessing. You are not too late to receive it. You are not too unqualified to steward it. If heaven approved it, Heaven has already accounted for your capacity. There will be new opportunities ahead. There will be new decisions. There will be future 11:59 p.m. moments. But this one matters because it establishes your rhythm. When you respond decisively now, you train your spirit to recognize urgency without fear. You build confidence in your obedience. You strengthen your awareness of divine timing. And as you move forward, carry this assurance with you: what God approves, He sustains. What He authorizes, He supports. What He begins, He completes. You are not stepping into the next day alone. You are stepping into it accompanied by the same presence that stamped the approval in heaven. Release any lingering doubt. Release any leftover hesitation. Release any fear that tries to resurface. The window hath been opened. The instruction has been clear. The time has been marked. Now comes the final act of agreement. Speak it within yourself. I will not delay. I will not retreat. I will not second-guess what heaven has already settled. You are entering a new day not as someone uncertain, but as someone aligned. Not as someone striving, but as someone authorized. Not as someone waiting for validation, but as someone who has already been approved. And so, as we close this message, seal it with intention. Type "IT is done" in the comments if you receive this word. Blessing code 951 is now activated. Let that declaration be your final agreement before midnight. Let it mark the transition. Let it symbolize that you have responded. As this final call before midnight echoes in your spirit, understand that this mission continues, reaching souls who are standing at their own 11:59 p.m. When you sow through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you become part of heaven's strategy to awaken someone before their window closes. The word declares that when you water others, you yourself will be watered, and this is God speaking life over your generosity. I sense that some of you feel stirred right now. This is your moment to act boldly and prophetically. Your seed becomes light in someone else's darkness, oil that keeps this message burning across nations. As you give, may the blessing approved over your life multiply beyond expectation. Step into obedience without hesitation. Release your support now and partner in this divine assignment. Carry peace with you. Carry confidence with you. Carry expectation with you. Midnight is not an ending. It is your beginning.